Hello, Pod Fam, and hello, Rachel. How are you tonight?
I am good, Laura. How are you?
I'm good. I'm drinking a new tea this evening. It's called Nettle Greek Mountain, and it's an herbal tea. And I actually like it a lot more than I thought I would.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's such
it's
a dramatic name. That sounds like somewhere where we'd be like, we traveled here. It doesn't sound like a tea.
yeah, and another name it goes by is like Mount Olympia tea,
hmm
Mount Olympus tea. It's supposed to have a lot of health benefits to it, but overall, for sipping, pretty good, although it has, like, different kinds of, like, blossoms in it, and when I opened the bag, it looked like dandelion fluff, and I thought it was, like, moldy, so I had to look up a bunch of different pictures of this tea because it smelled fine, but I was just like, "I don't know, it doesn't look right," and they're like, "No, no, it looks fluffy, it's fine." I'm like, "Okay."
That's kind of how I felt when I opened up. I think I was having it last week, the Don't Worry, Be Happy tea.
Yeah, with the chamomile,
Yeah, when I opened it up, I was like, that looks weird.
like, it literally has full flowers in it. It's
I
pretty.
know. It's very pretty, but it is a bit alarming when you're not used to seeing it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, am I gonna be okay?
Yeah, but this is the thing about drinking, like, whole loose tea, right? You're really getting the real stuff. It's not that, leftover, overly processed, chopped up leaf that a lot of times comes in tea bags.
Fair enough. Well, the tea mascot is back this week, my little ducky tea infuser.
Love it.
But I also have a new one that has the weirdest name ever, but it's actually really delicious. And it is maple cinnamon waffles,
Ooh.
which is a rooibos tea. And
Mhm.
I think it has like a bit of maple sugar in it, which I don't know about you, but I like love maple sugar.
Yeah, it's so good. Anything maple. Can you tell we're Canadian? We're like,
Yes.
"Maple,
Yeah.
great, we love it."
Yeah. Like I don't know if people have had it elsewhere, but you remember when you would go to like the little farmers markets? They would have like the little maple leaf that was literally just hardened maple sugar.
Yes, I grew up in Quebec, and so every winter we would go to what we would call, like, the sugar shack, and it was literally just this hut where they made maple syrup, and so they would do it where they pour it on the snow, and then you roll it up on the stick.
hmm
Oh, so good. I might
I
have to
love
go.
it.
Might have to find a place this winter just to go do that.
I love it. Well, that's pretty much exactly what this tea tastes like now that it's been brewing for a while. So I'm a big fan. 10 out of 10 tea choice, Laura, because you're the one who picked it out for me.
It just I don't know, something about it, I was just like, "Rachel will like this."
I kind of avoided it. Like I've tried every other one that you had gotten me because I was like, okay, cookie dough, I can vibe with that.
Mhm.
Where when it was like waffles, I was like, what? I think if it just said maple cinnamon, I would have been like, great, let's go.
Yeah.
But it was the waffles where I was just like, is this gonna taste like a morning pastry?
It's like,
So
"Is this tea breakfast?"
it's just like, I don't know if this is the right one for me, but no, I'm glad that I got it. I feel like I'll be drinking this a lot during the Christmas season. So, a follow up to our episode last week, I did get my Christmas decorations before the run on HomeSense happened. I'm really proud of myself.
Love that.
Mm hmm. Mm
You
hmm.
kind of inspired me. I'm not doing anything about Christmas yet, but I'm thinking about it.
You know what? We are employed, working adults, Laura, and time goes by really freaking fast. Look how fast October went by. We got to start thinking about it now.
It's
Because
true. It's
if
true.
we don't, it's going to be November 24th. And then we've only got like 4 weeks. And then what do we do then?
This is true. I did organize the Christmas schedule the other night,
Good, good.
but that's as far as I've gotten. But that's like the hardest thing.
Yeah,
It's tough when you have significant others.
it really is. Christmas aside, because it's literally November 4th. Yeah. So, what are we going to be chatting about this evening? It seems like a bit of a mix of two of our core topics.
Yes, this one really is a blend of, I would say, one of our two favorite topics,
Yeah.
and that is friendship and money.
It really does make our world go round, Laura.
Yes, it does. You need your people in your life and you need some funds in your life as well. And I think even just starting to talk about the holidays coming up, this is definitely a time of the year where people do hang out a lot more. You know, you have family parties, you've got friend parties and work parties, lots of stuff
hmm
going on. And I know for me personally, like especially in years when I was still in school or, just starting out in the workforce, Christmas could be kind of hard on my wallet because, I really wanted to do all the things with my friends and my family and, buy them Christmas presents and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I was just like, I'm really not in the financial position to be doing that.
Mhm.
So I think that kind of just goes a little bit hand in hand with what we want to talk about tonight. We just kind of want to have a conversation about things that we can do or that we are currently doing just to spend time with your friends, nurture those relationships, but not break the bank. I think especially if any of our listeners are in like their early 20s, I feel like this would hit you the most
Mhm.
because I feel like that was the time, at least in my life personally, I was definitely living outside my means when it came to trying to keep up with my friends. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I kind of want to start the conversation off with a really good example because we have been talking about the holidays, where this is a tradition that started with you and I think probably like 4, 5 years ago, I
Mhm.
think now, because we used to buy each other birthday presents and Christmas presents, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember eventually one year we picked up the phone and we were just like, all right, can we do this year? And we both said no. Like we were both in school, it's just not the time. And this started a tradition for us that we've held all throughout, whether it's like a holiday, a birthday, or just a regular hangout, where we just started to rotate hanging out at each other's places.
Yeah.
One thing we would always do was go get something quick from the grocery store that was maybe like $8.
Oh, yeah, a whole meal for $8.
Yeah, and it was like a whole meal. And then we would just go back to yours and like maybe put on Netflix or something. And it was great. Like those are some of my favorite memories. So it's like that's just a good example kind of running into that as something that started when we were in our early 20s but has lasted.
Yeah, and let's just kinda go back to where you started with your story when we were at Christmas and birthday times where we had that discussion of, "You know what? I just don't have extra cash right now to exchange Christmas presents this year." That is something that I feel a lot of people will struggle with because there's like an underlying concern of, oh, well, if my friend gets me a present, I need to get them a present. Or, if we aren't getting each other presents, do we think of each other less? Do we love each other less? Insert whatever your concern is. And it is also bearing your soul a little bit. And that,
Hmm.
okay, that might be dramatic for some people, but for a lot of people, it's not when you have to admit that you just don't have extra cash, especially around the holiday time when, maybe your family is a little bit more of a priority on gift giving. So
Hmm.
that's kind of the first thing, like, gotta have the courage to bring up those concerns because, a good friendship is not based on material goods or
Hmm.
going out to concerts or whatever experience that costs a lot of money. A good friendship is built on trust and just mutual appreciation for each other. And I don't know if you have friends that get upset about that, then sorry, girl, you got to rethink your friends because I don't think those are the people who are going to be there for you if, your life falls apart or, shit hits the fan.
Yeah, exactly. Because like money, we don't love talking about it, but it is something that it's integral to all of our lives. Like it's literally what makes all of our worlds go round.
Yep.
That if you don't have somebody in your life that can support the objectives or the goals or the position that you're in when it comes to your finances, that's not a very good relationship for you to have in your life. That is literally a core pillar of your existence.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't just have to be around the holidays or birthdays. And I always think of an example. Obviously, you've seen Friends.
Hmm.
Rachel, Joey, and Phoebe are sitting down with Ross and Monica. There was like a lot of discomfort around them because Ross and Monica made more money. And there was like this whole episode about how uncomfortable Rachel, Joey, and Phoebe were because they kept getting drawn into these situations where they had to spend a lot more money because Ross and Monica wanted to. And it was an episode where they had to have that conversation. Sometimes it feels like you're disregarding the fact that we're not in the same financial position as you.
And that is kind of a reality for a lot of people. Like, great if you and your friends all make the same amount of money, have the same expenses, same values, and same tastes,
Yeah.
maybe you would notice less of a discrepancy if it came up. But, in the real world, you're going to have friends that have more than you. You're going to have friends that have possibly less. And it's
Mhm.
all about being respectful of what people have. And, if you want to be with them and hang out, it's something you do have to take into consideration. One thing that I think is really popular would be, a friend who always wants to go out to eat or go out to a club or go to concerts
Mhm.
because, yeah, maybe once a month these things aren't very expensive, but if this is your weekly hangout, like
Mhm.
that's a lot of money. Like now you're talking potentially hundreds of dollars every month that some people might not have to spare.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that this exists a lot in university settings as well, because there's such a diversity in the backgrounds that students come from. Because, there's people who have no support and have student loans and they have to work essentially full time while they're studying. And then there's somebody who their education is totally paid for and they have an allowance that they live off of. University is one of those places where those people come together a lot
Right. Yeah.
because it's a shared experience where you're all going through the same stuff together. And I find that the separation of quote unquote classes, I don't really want to use that word, but I think people will understand what I'm talking about. That separation, I didn't really find it existed as much when I was in school. So a lot of friends from different backgrounds come together, right?
Mhm.
And that's just one of those cases that really highlights that you might have somebody who, it's not necessarily that they couldn't go for dinner once a month, but maybe the fact is that they have to work like 6 days a week anyway, just
Yeah.
in order to pay their tuition and pay their rent. So whether it's financial or time wise, they just can't be there.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a valid point that you just bring up there. It's the cost of time where to do stuff with your friends, it does take time. And like you said, if that was time that you were spending working in order to pay for that, you're kind of in a catch 22 a little
Hmm.
bit where you want to spend time with your friends, but you got to work. But in order to spend time with your friends, like, like it's just kind of a bit of a battle that's going back and
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah, and going back to the cost of time as well, maybe we can look at it where it's not always financial. I can't remember exactly which episode we talked about this in, but we've definitely talked about it before. There is the other factor too, where there's only so much time that you have in a day as well,
Mhm.
where you're working. A 9 to 5 job is more like 8 to 6:30, in my view.
Yeah, because by the time you get to work, get ready for work, come home.
Yeah. So say like you're working from 8 to 6:30 and then you need to exercise, you need to cook dinner, you need to I don't know, walk your dog, something like that. And then on the weekends say you have like a passion project that you're doing that's the only time you have to work on it. That kind of draws in as well, where it's not always just a financial thing when it comes to finding ways to hang out with your friends. It's also that cost of what do you have to sacrifice in one area to make room for this. Where I find there's some beauty in merging your friendships with those touch points in your life where you kind of hit two birds with one stone.
Mhm.
One thing that I really like to do was hiking,
Yes.
right? Because then you are having great quality time with your friends. It's free and you're getting your exercise in.
I think you just said it right there where it's great if you can group some of your activities and your friendships into one thing because then that brings more enjoyment for those activities sometimes. If you and your friends all really enjoy painting and let's say every Friday night you get together and paint,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's your passion, they're your friends. I think that's a great way just to try and fit everything in.
Mm-hmm.
However, for the person who is working, has their stuff going on, and is feeling pressure to hang out with their friends,
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we go through waves in our life where it's really hard to maintain
Mm-hmm.
friendships, especially the more you get working and then you get into a romantic relationship, you get into kids and everything that kind of goes as you get older. It does
Mm-hmm.
get harder and harder to
Yes.
maintain friendships, and I think you can't beat yourself up
No.
if, let's say in university, I know we've definitely talked about this before, where you are literally with your friends,
Mhm.
probably like minimum 5 days a week. Like whether you're in classes together, hanging out together, studying together, whatever. But
Mhm.
then when you all go your separate ways and you're not in that melting pot of people
Yes.
anymore, then it gets hard because you're all on your own different path. And I think that's a pretty hard transition going from like that like all or nothing
Yeah.
phase. And yeah, you can't get too hard on yourself because things change.
Yeah.
And you and your friends need to both recognize that. And
Mhm.
some people will fall to the wayside, but
Mhm.
others, people who truly love you and want to be in your life, they're not going to be offended if you don't call them every day. Or, if you haven't seen each other in 6 months to a year. You still know that person is in your life,
Mhm.
and then when you are together, it can be so much more meaningful. So,
Mhm.
if you're someone who's going through that transition right now, don't feel like you're doing something wrong and letting down those friendships. I think that's
Mhm.
when you really discover who your true friends are
Mhm.
because they're gonna stick by you no matter what.
Mhm. And I think a nice summary for that that really rounds it out is that it seems like the financial cost or the actual monetary cost as you get older, it diminishes,
Yes.
where the cost of time increases the older that we get.
Yes. Yeah, that is very key. 'Cause that's so
Yes.
true, right? Like, when we're younger, we've got plenty of time. We don't have kids normally, we don't have high demanding jobs, yet we don't have any money. But then as we get older, we've got kids, we've got houses and mortgages to pay, but we're
Mhm.
also working, high demanding jobs that take away our time. So,
Mhm.
that is definitely a valid point that you're
Mhm.
making. But let's go back a little bit to peer pressure in friendships. And I think this is definitely like that university mid-20s issue, especially when it comes to like going out and clubbing.
Mhm.
Cuz I remember like when I was in university, there were like some times where I'm pretty sure I went out every weekend. I know you were the same, Rachel, like, we were always out doing stuff, and I'm just looking back, I'm like, "How did I afford any of this?" Like, it's not like, I think I had a part-time job in
Mhm.
university, but, like, it's not like I had extra money laying around, so I'm just like, "Wow," like, I had such a little disregard.
Well, you see, Laura, what you were doing was instead of, going to the grocery store and using the money that you spent on the bar on more variety than rice, ground beef, and some green peppers, you just bought the rice, ground beef, and green pepper. And the rest of it went to the club.
That is true, I do recall
Yeah.
around that same time period, I ate only rice.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. Yeah, and that was just like, I was so caught up because I was on different, like, sports teams and that kinda stuff, and I was just so caught up with being with my friends and, if they were all going out, well, we were all going out.
Yes.
So, it didn't matter that I maybe only had $20 to my name. Um
You made those $20 last across the weekend.
Exactly, like, I'm not sure how I did it, but I certainly stretched my dollars, that's for sure. But my big fear about not going was really FOMO, like, fear of missing out, right? I didn't wanna miss out on the good times, I didn't wanna miss out on the memories, and, there's nothing wrong with that,
Mhm.
but now, knowing what I know and going through what I've experienced, I probably would have turned down some of those outings because it's not like some of them weren't that special,
Mhm.
right? Like if you're going to a bar every Saturday night, they all kind of blend together
Yeah, like
eventually.
you don't remember really.
No, like I can't recall the difference between, a Saturday in November and a Saturday in February, right? Like
Mhm.
it all just kind of was like, oh, well, we did that a bunch of times, so I don't know, whatever happened, that doesn't really stand out in my memory. But
Mhm.
now as like an older adult, when I do wanna, like, hang out with my friends and whether it's something that is a bit of an investment or not,
Mhm.
I feel like there's a lot more effort and thoughtfulness that goes into it.
Mhm.
And so then, like, these are good times that I really do remember. And this one's a bit extreme because it was a major financial investment, but we planned it for a year was us going on a trip,
Yes.
right? Where 100 nights going out to clubs would never come close
Mhm.
to us going on a trip together.
I agree.
And just to bring the financial aspect back into it, I'm not saying people need to go on a trip with their friends.
Mhm.
Um, but just think of it more that way. If there's something that you and your friends really want to do, plan for it.
Mhm.
Not everything has to happen in an instant, especially if you're all working towards that goal to, I don't know, go to a Taylor Swift concert that's 3 months away, right? But you
Yeah.
all want to get like the platinum seats.
Mhm.
Then you have time. And you know what? You're gonna have an amazing time once you get to that concert or whatever you wanna go do. So, that's, like, one tip I kinda have is it really okay, so wow, it's so overdone, but it really is quality over quantity.
Mhm.
So, that's one thing. If you're gonna spend money, be mindful about it.
Mhm.
And I think making dinner together at home is so underrated. 1,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
more affordable. 2, you can actually talk to each other because some places, it's so loud that you can't even hear anything,
Mhm.
and save that extra $40 that you would have spent going out for dinner,
Mhm.
and put that towards, like, hey, maybe you guys are gonna go, like, do a weekend somewhere, like, you're gonna
Mhm.
get an Airbnb, go on a little road trip. So, that's definitely a great option. I can already hear people saying, like, "Oh, but, like, that's not special, like, we wanna go out and do something special." And I'm gonna share something that, like, my boyfriend and I, we do with our friend group. We go over to each other's places for dinner or just
Mhm.
a party, like, and just hang out, whatever.
Mhm.
But we do themed parties,
Mhm.
right? We just make it fun, and really, when you think about it, it's just another ordinary night. We're doing the same thing that we would be doing if we went out to a bar,
Mhm.
but instead, we're sitting in someone's home. We're comfortable. If
Mhm.
someone needed to crash there, that's an option.
Mhm.
And, maybe we're all dressed up,
Mhm.
or maybe we're having a certain type of, like, let's just say we're having like an Italian night. So everyone
Mhm.
has to bring something like that's an Italian cuisine,
Mhm.
right? You can get creative without having to go out to an Italian restaurant or go out to a club for Halloween. I think there's just a big opportunity, especially now that we're coming out of COVID lockdowns.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who really aren't rushing back into the clubs or rushing back into restaurants.
Mhm.
So you can just create the exact same experience at a friend's house and you just take turns hosting.
No, I love that because it's just like, you know what? You're going to have way more fun doing that than going to a loud bar where you can't even really do anything because you're packed in like sardines.
Yeah, so much more. And like, you can't even hear the people anyway. So it's like, are you actually hanging out and having meaningful conversations? Probably not.
Most likely not. I can list out a lot of meaningful conversations that I've had at house parties or, if you throw it back to university, the pre games. I can tell you lots of experiences from those kind of events, but could I tell you anything that happened when you actually made it out? No, because it wasn't memorable. If anything, I was just annoyed the whole time because you can't even dance because there's like 200 more people than the capacity of that place can actually hold.
Yeah. And then there's the stress of getting home, where if you're hanging at someone's house or your house, you're already home.
Mhm. Yeah, so we've talked about the difficulties of having that conversation. We've talked about peer pressure and we've talked about making the time with your friends special.
hmm
But do you think we can summarize some ideas for our listeners that are inexpensive ways to spend time with their friends?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think we've already mentioned a lot of great ones here. Obviously, like, my favorite is taking turns hosting dinner.
Mhm.
Or, both of you go to the grocery store and split the grocery bill and then make it together, right?
Yeah.
Like, super cheap, super affordable, usually a healthier option
Mhm.
than even if you were to just get, like, takeout somewhere. And then, like you said, going for hikes
Mhm.
or finding an activity, like hiking is free in most places, going for a walk.
Mhm. Snowshoeing as well in the wintertime.
Yeah, and that's how you mix up, right? Like, in the summertime, go biking, go hiking,
Mhm.
and then in the wintertime, you got snowshoes, you have cross country skiing.
Yeah, and like with the snowshoeing, maybe you have to rent some, but that's not an astronomical price. And then, you get to have a good conversation with your friends because you're in a quiet space and it's lovely. And one that I actually wanted to mention that was really fun, especially for our listeners that maybe they don't live in the same city as their friends. And this was something that you and I did recently. Start a TV show together, and if you have to like buy the seasons, just split it down the middle.
Yeah, this is our One Tree Hill
Yeah.
binging marathon that we're doing together yet separate,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just we will watch the shows and then we'll, like, either be on the phone with each other talking about the episode
Hmm.
or, we'll have a recap of where we're both at and what we think and that's kinda been fun because,
Hmm.
like, my boyfriend, it's very hard to find a show that we both enjoy and want to binge together because okay, I watch shows like One Tree Hill.
Hmm. Yep.
Not
See, my
like
boyfriend will come up behind me and he'll hear them say something just absolutely cheesy and ridiculous in the show, and he'll start laughing, and I'm just like, how dare you disrespect Nathan that way?
oh my god, right? And, like, okay, I have the worst luck. It doesn't matter, okay, because we did The Outlander, we're on One Tree Hill now. There are some sex scenes that happen
Yep.
in the show,
Yep.
and my boyfriend, without a doubt, I don't know if it's, like, a sense that he gets, but
Yeah.
he always happens to walk in the room, and he's just like, "Laura, why are you always watching a porno?"
See,
He's like, "Every show you watch has so much sex in it." And I'm like,
yeah.
"No, not really, it's just when you walk in the room."
So yes, when you're kind of long distance, splitting a TV show, and if there is like a cost, because like One Tree Hill does not exist anywhere,
Does not
and it's
exist on platforms. We had to get Apple, but, like, I watch that so much that if I own it, I'm, like, perfectly happy. It
oh
will
yeah,
it will not go to waste.
it considering what the price was, it's like totally worth it. And
Yes.
it's just fun because especially when you are an adult and you get more entrenched in your lives and stuff, sometimes like it is hard to maybe find a connection point
Mhm.
all the time to talk about, where this is something where there's always something built in that you can connect with your friends on.
Yeah, I really like
So,
that point that you just made, like, it's something where you can relate
mhm.
and come together on. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And, okay, let's also talk about some things, like, because I feel like some people would be like, "Yeah, well, we're tired of hanging out at home. We've been doing that for the
Yeah,
past few years." Yes, we
that's
hear
fair.
you. We understand. We all have been. Go out and check your community because I've been seeing, like, a lot of events start popping
Mhm.
up, like, there's, like, music in the park, there's, like, a free class night or a talk that's going on or, a book club. So, there's lots of things that are happening that you can plan to do with your friends, and I think the community center is, like, a really good starting spot because I know Rachel is something we did back when we were living in the same town. We went swimming,
Mhm.
and what did that cost us? $3.75?
If that, to be honest, I don't remember spending any money on it at all.
Yeah, like, I think we had change in our pockets, and they're like, "Yeah, that's good." I think it was, like, $3.25 even, like, it was super cheap, but
Mhm.
that was, like, an hour-long plus hangout
Mhm.
for us that we're both not great swimmers,
Yeah.
but it was something we were kinda working on together to improve and get a little stronger at it.
Mhm. Well, springing off of that too, just exercising together in general is fantastic.
Yeah, and I know we talked about that in last week's episode of just the motivation is great when you have someone to do it with you and hold you accountable.
For example, I remember, I think it was, I don't even know how long ago it was, but you had started doing like the run club
Oh,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And it was just something where we would meet 2 or 3 times a week and we would do a 30-minute run together, which was awesome. Didn't cost us anything. We got outside, hung out together. Great. But then also
Yeah.
going into the fact that, people kind of want to go out into society again too. Maybe you join a yoga studio together
Mhm.
and you go to your classes together because then you're getting your exercise and you're spending time with your friends. And, the cost kind of equalizes.
Yeah, that's true. So for anyone who keeps a budget on entertainment and lifestyle, then there you go. There's something that can be split
Hmm.
across. And yeah, like that run club was fantastic because it was free. It was put on by the Y.
Hmm.
And I remember at the end of it, we got to do like a little 5K race, and it was with the group of people that we had been running with, so we kinda met new people. So, there's lots out there, people, like, you just have to look and get creative because after a while, like, the whole restaurant thing gets old, and the clubbing thing, that gets really old, especially
Yeah.
when you're pushing 30, um, it's not really your, like, number 1 place you feel like going on a Friday night. Just a heads up for anyone who is younger.
You have one drink and you feel like you're gonna die.
Oh my
But,
god.
for those of you that do really like the restaurant atmosphere or kind of that feeling of a restaurant, like to each their own. But as well, something that, again, we do that's not quite the restaurant, but like a similar vibe where we're going to get something to, have a little drink is honestly go get a coffee together and go for a drive, go
Oh
for
my
a
god,
walk
that's
or
yeah.
something.
Okay, sometimes that's not the most economical because gas is stupid expensive right now, but when it
Yes.
was, like, not expensive,
Yeah.
yeah, like, we'd grab coffee or a dessert and go for a drive,
Hmm.
and then we would do, like, park in a parking lot and just chat for, like, an hour.
Yeah. Or literally just go buy the coffee and then sit in the parking lot
Yeah,
and
yeah,
in the
really, you
car
don't
for
even
an
have to
hour.
drive. Yeah,
Yeah.
we go sing in the car, you know?
Exactly. And like, you know what? I know people are gonna we're millennials with our $5 coffee. You know
Oh,
what? Like if that's what you're doing instead of the $25 entree that's not even that good, take the coffee.
yeah, you're already
Like
ahead.
it's still pretty inexpensive, especially if you go to like a local shop that does not charge an arm and a leg for a chai tea latte.
Mhm. Starbucks.
Yeah. So honestly, getting a nice little coffee and sitting in a parking lot, it's a good time. Don't knock it until you try it.
Yep. I'm kinda into the idea of having a book club. You just need some people, like, you don't even it doesn't cost you anything, I mean, unless you had to buy the book, but that's why libraries exist and ebooks.
Hmm. No, I really like that idea. That's a really good idea. Do you want to
Mhm.
start a book club?
Yeah, let's start a book club.
Oh my god. Oh my god. We can have like a podcast book club.
Oh my god, okay. We'll have to tell people what we're reading, but do we have to read the same book? I guess technically a book club, you read the same book and then you discuss the book.
Oh my god. We'll talk. We'll talk. This is a
Okay.
great
Alright,
idea.
well, I'm reading the Bridgerton collection right now.
All right. All
I was
right.
reading
Some.
something really deep before.
I was about to say you're reading some quality in-depth fiction there.
Oh, yeah. Expands the mind. I feel challenged. I've just okay, I'm not gonna lie, this whole year, I don't know why, maybe it was, like, when the Bridgerton TV show came out, but I've really
Yeah.
been enjoying, like, the Regency types of books where it's like that, like, 1800 society.
Hmm.
I've read so many different genres that are, like, up that alley. I'm really enjoying it.
Are you feeling intellectually stimulated?
No. Not really. But I'm reading you know what? I'm reading for fun, okay? Not everything has to be work and difficult and thought-provoking. I've read a lot of complicated, high-level books in my life. I just want something fun, all right? I work hard.
You got a complicated job. It's fine.
I do. I read financial literature all day, every day. I sometimes just wanna read my smutty Bridgerton book, okay? Leave me alone.
I completely understand. It's all right.
Thanks.
I accept you. I did the same.
Thank you.
Inexpensive ways to hang out with your friends, guys. They exist.
Yep, you just
And
have to get creative.
remember that there's the cost of money and the cost of time, and there are ways where you can minimize both.
Absolutely. And with that, live like tea.
Live like tea.